iRacing right now.
He's got tracks and he's going around the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God! Oh, big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Welcome one and welcome all to SimSpeed TV once again for the third round of the V8 Drive Day Perth Southern Cross Esports Summer Series. Of course, round 3 of this 6-round championship taking place over the summer months down here in Australia, and we're at Oulton Park for this third round. What an amazing circuit to be racing at in this field of Porsche 911 RSRs. A brilliant night of racing coming up, 2 sprint races, one with a mandatory pit stop coming up very soon after qualifying. And to bring it to you all live here on SimSpeed TV is myself, Reese Gardner, and David Haynes alongside me in the commentary box. David, it's been a great opening couple of rounds of the season. Oran Park and Charlotte Roval certainly turned it up in terms of action, and now we go to Oulton Park. Bit of an antithesis to the Charlotte Motor Speedway. An old-fashioned flowing circuit, but it's very narrow. Might be hard to pass here.
Yeah, exactly. It's not looking so bad though, because this is the layout, the version that we're going to be racing on. Many different possible configurations around here, all the way from the shortest Foster's layout to similar to this, using the long Hislops and International section, but without Britain's chicane on the back straight there. Means we're going to have a lot more speed down in towards the braking zone there after Britain's, and that's where you might see some of the overtaking potentially happen around here. You're right though, everywhere else bumpy, narrow, and I think difficult to pass.
Yeah, particularly through Island Bend, turn 3. That's going to be a point of contention among the drivers here. You get a little bit of understeer, you're going to slither straight off into the gravel trap and have a head-on appointment with the tyre barriers. Lodge Corner at the end of the lap may also be a passing opportunity, but there's plenty of bumps on the way in, and that might play havoc with these GTE machines, which do not have anti-lock braking systems. Either way, it's going to be a very fun night here at Oulton Park. Big thanks to our series sponsors, of course V8 Drive Day Perth, the main one. We've also got V-Race Experience on board, West Australian Automotive Equipment, Word of Mouth Signs, Alliance Auto Parts and Mining Supplies as well. Big thanks to everyone at those companies for your support of this fantastic series. Let's take a look at the championship standings going into this round, and it's been a 2-horse race between Gianni Lutzu and Trevor Leonard for top honours most of the time. Lutzu leading the championship by 15 points coming out of Charlotte Motor Speedway, and with Trevor Leonard currently topping the practice session, looks like he means business today. But have a look from 5th back, David. Sam Dicker might be under threat from Clint Harvey and Terence Nielsen.
Yeah, mathematically very close there, as well as equal 9th for Grant Johnson and Brody Watts. And solid turnout again here for round number 3. So could definitely see some movement happen on these standings.
We got 28 drivers in the server here tonight, and it's going to be a very tightly packed race here around Oulton Park. Here is Sam Dicker, part of the Flat Out Karts team, demonstrating there the bypass of the Britain's chicane. The full Grand Prix layout of Oulton Park uses both of these chicanes on the back stretch, but right here at the Hislop chicane and then out through Knickerbrook Corner, that might potentially be a good passing opportunity. That extended back straight, thanks to the removal of Britain's chicane, means it's going to be quite a chance for drivers to draft their way up to the back of a rival. But corners like this, my goodness, Druids, that double apex right. You've got to be very careful on the exit, the narrow curb. And right here you see the bumps and dips in the road on the run into Lodge Corner. Every possible opportunity to pass there, but as we said earlier, it is going to be quite difficult. And with a very short run to turn 1 here at Oulton Park, we are doing a rolling start, but it could be very tightly packed, especially because there's no room for error on the exit.
Yeah, and you think about how much passing we did see on the Charlotte Roval, you've got to imagine it'll be possible for our drivers in these cars here. It is, if anything, a little more open, a little more flowing, but not necessarily any wider. Someone has found a way to drop out of the groove of that hairpin corner. Sharply banked kind of towards the apex there. You get in a little bit too hot and the banking's not enough to catch you. You kind of get flung out.
Yeah, it's very easy to get offline and, oh dear, looked like a bit of a problem for someone into turn 2 there. It's a bit difficult to line up a pass into there as well. There's a right-hand kink that leads into the descending left. Following Cameron Edwards at the moment, one of the organisers of this series. Cam, a figure at the WA Sporting Car Club, and instrumental in setting up this series. It's been really good to see the amount of support that this series has garnered over the time that it's been running, and we've been broadcasting it here on SimSpeed TV. Certainly you can see that many companies in the Perth and WA region have lent their support to drivers here, and drivers testing out the pit lane as well in practice. If we can go over the format very briefly before we get into qualifying. The qualifying session is going to be 15 minutes, then it's followed by a 15-minute race, and then after a little break we go for 25 more minutes with an inverted top 12 and a compulsory pit stop. Oulton Park's pit lane, very slow speed limit. It's only 50 kilometers an hour, and it can be difficult to line up the entry in time.
Yeah, it narrows a bit. It's very slow, and you see another hint of a lockup from someone else practicing that pit entry. It's downhill when you're in your pit stall as well there, so in every single way it's quite difficult. There's not a whole lot of pit stalls either, so I even suspect that with 28 cars some of them might be shared.
Yes indeed, it's going to be a very tightly packed pit lane tonight as the session ticks over, and we'll get into our 15 minutes of qualifying. So, practice belonged to Trevor Leonard. He ended up setting a 1 minute 25.499, and that was full second, plus 0.2 ahead of Kevin Norman, another 73 in position number 2. So, certainly Trevor Leonard is in the box seat to really capitalise here, especially since it seems Gianni Lutsu, his championship rival, is not here tonight. So what Trevor Leonard is going to be hoping for here is pole and hopefully cruising to a race win, but we know that these races are anything but a cruise. I mean, even in qualifying, it looks like they're racing like it's the final lap. Everyone looking for their own little piece of real estate out here on the racetrack.
Sam Dicker's not hanging around, so he's gone for a little more track position on that one. And it was a real race off of pit lane. Relatively clear track in front of him. I suspect that this first flying lap might be one of the few clean ones that you get in this session, so that'll be pretty important.
Yeah, getting a clean lap in right at the start of the session will be crucial here for the drivers, and you can see it's a very short lap here at Oulton Park. The track is 4.3 kilometres long, and you're back at the start-finish line before you know it. It's a heck of an adventure along the way in. It's looking very tightly packed there in the midfield. Drivers are probably going to have to back off as Sam Dicker begins his first qualifying lap. Let's see how well he does. Oulton Park, notorious for being a bit brutal on the off-tracks, especially there at the exit of turn 3. Can't go too far onto the curb, otherwise your lap is going to be invalidated. It's the track limits here have been applied with British motorsport cutting rules, and they are very strict in the UK. It is the white line and no more that is the limits of the track. Dicker, it seems, has nailed the first sector though, and this could be a good lap, but it all comes down to the Hislop chicane here, those tyre bundles, point of contention.
I was about to say there's no way that the track limits are more tightly enforced than those tyre bundles on the Apex. You're gonna see exactly what I mean by that at some point in qualifying or the 2 races. I'm very, very certain of it. But for Dicker so far, this is what this lap needed to be. It's tidy and it's precise, and it doesn't look like he's hanging back too much. But it needed to be a clean lap at this opportunity, at this juncture.
So this could be the lap that defines Sam Dicker's session. It's going to be a 1 minute 25.923 there. But Trevor Leonard has taken 3/10 out of him already. 1 minute 25.69 for P2 in the championship. Also got out on track Franz Esterbauer with Perth Fork trucks on the bumpers and the rear wing. Another example of the many companies that are providing support to the drivers here in this series. And a very nice looking machine as well, I have to say, but maybe facing the wrong way out of the hairpin. Not the easiest way to go about your qualifying session. Esterbauer's going to have to get going quick, sharp, and fortunately the other drivers avoid getting into him, but ended up getting a little compromised there with Sam Dicker on his second qualifying lap. We'll have to wait and see how that pans out for both drivers. Terence Nielsen, he has got a good opportunity to get points here today, and he goes up to P10 in the standings. Mason Harvey, meanwhile, going up to P5 on a 1 minute 26.379. Some very competitive times being run here, and looking at P2 back, it's looking mighty close. There's barely a tenth separating Sam Dicker and Mike Pepper as Kevin Norman makes his way towards Druids.
Talk about how potentially congested it could become, but this layout is still longer than Oran Park or Charlotte Roval, even if only slightly. So for Kevin Norman, that's out the final corner. Got to kind of straight line it back towards turn 1, keep it all going. 26.8 will stick him to 11th.
Good opening lap there from Kevin Norman. Tyson Broad, meanwhile, just improved to P2. 1 minute 25.8 for him. And Ray Oliver promoting himself up from P9 to P4, setting a 1 minute 26.0. Ray Oliver, part of the Mindset team here. And with a 26.0, it's looking mighty close for the top 5. Just for context, that less than 2/10 gap between 3rd and 5th place. So certainly going to be very hotly contested there as Mason Harvey improves to P6, Anthony Jewell improves to P13. Let's see how Cameron Edwards ends up doing. He hasn't set a time yet in this session.
And that could very well be those track limits that you talk about. In fact, there's a whole handful of drivers that have cut a couple laps,
Does he have
but
damage?
not had any of them be allowed. A couple of cars bumped together on the pit exit. Don't know where else he might have picked up.
I just saw a dent in Cam's rear bumper on the external view, and looks like he's abandoned that qualifying run and will bring it into the pits. Unfortunate there for Mr. Edwards, but he's still got plenty of time to set a couple of flying laps. Oh dear. Justin McLean having a bit of an off there at Druids, and you see how bumpy it is on the grass. Oh dear. A lot of drivers really pushing it here in the qualifying session. Grant Johnson almost getting involved in that. Former V8 Utes champion Grant Johnson had quite an interesting race at Charlotte Roval a couple of weeks ago. See how well he ends up doing in this qualifying session. He's another one of those drivers that hasn't set a time yet. Got one corner to go. Hopefully this lap will be the one for him.
Well, we're going to find out approaching the halfway point of the session. So an improvement, but still, no, not allowed. On the outside of turn one's another place. So tempting, so easy to go out a little bit too wide.
Trevor Leonard might be going faster on this lap, we're hearing. We'll find out in just a few seconds. Can he get into the 1 minute 25s? No. He's 5 tenths down on that lap, but still 1 minute 26.063. That's the same time that Mike Pepper set in P5 at the moment. So it shows you how competitive the field is. Mason Harvey in the number 54. Time is rapidly running out for him to improve on his current 6th place in the standings. And what does he have to do to gain positions? Basically, if he gains a 10th, he'll pit Mike Pepper to P5. But if he can find just a couple more tenths from that, oh, just as I say that, he goes off at the exit of Druids. It's very easy to induce understeer in that double apex right. Got to be careful about when you get on the throttle. But all he needs is a couple of tenths, and he could be challenging for 3rd.
Is that Grant Johnson there? Or a teammate or something in the final corner that was having some problems? But we saw here, this driver that just caught some of the bumps on the entry caused the problems, and that's not going to be an allowed lap for Anthony Jewell. That was one of the places that you can invalidate your lap. Outside of turn 1, outside the bottom of the Cascades are the two that come to mind as pretty easy. Everywhere else is a little more solidly grassed. There's sort of concrete and garden pavers kind of things. The outside is some of the other corners.
Barry Punter starting another lap here. And Barry is currently 27th in the standings. The drivers that haven't set times so far, Grant Johnson, this guy Barry Punter, and Cameron Edwards, who we focus on now. Let's see if he can end this lap to his satisfaction. A little bit of traffic just up ahead of him. Might be a little distracting coming into the chicane, but there's still plenty of space between them. We'll see if Edwards can improve here, or actually post a time on the board, full stop. This is a section of the circuit where you'd certainly see a lot of drama in the race. It's very narrow. There's a couple of kinks that you need to navigate. If the driver in front of you messes up the exit of Hislop and Knickerbrook, then you can certainly get alongside, but will both of you make it out of Druids at the end of it is the big question. Bit of oversteer for the driver in front of Cameron Edwards there. Let's see the first time from Edwards. There we go, 26.8. That puts him up to P15. Not a bad run there to start things off. He hasn't got much time left to set a time, and looks like he's still carrying a little bit of damage on his rear bumper. Doesn't seem to be affecting his pace all that much though, so we'll see how he ends up negotiating that. Alex Newton, currently 9th and looking to improve. Michael Thompson down in 25th place, second last of the drivers that have set a time. Actually now 3rd last, because Barry Punter just crossed the line, 1 minute 28.8. So that leaves Grant Johnson as the only driver left to set a time in this session. Can Sam Dicker improve and get P2 back from Tyson Broad? He needs a 10th and a bit.
Don't have any sectors, but he's one of the drivers who've made a pit stop in this session for new tyres, and he's done it a little bit earlier than Trevor Leonard and Tyson Broad, so Sam Dicker could be right into the sweet spot of a new set of tyres at the moment.
We just saw Justin McLean going to P11 as well, a good improvement there from, I think it was about 14th or 15th that he was at before. So Sam Dicker coming to the end of another lap, and 26.072, so close there to getting back into the 25s, but the drivers seem to be struggling to find any kind of improvement here at the end of the session, and a lock-up for Neil Woodburn there into the final corner. Just ahead of him, Cameron Edwards improving to 9th place, so Edwards, the end of the session, seems to be going pretty well for him. Woodburn, we'll see what he can do. Mike Pepper has just gone to P3 meanwhile. Sam Dicker, he's going to have to find even more time now if he wants to start on that front row with Trevor Leonard. It's a proper 10th that he needs to gain.
Yeah, that's ramped up the pressure a little bit to deliver at the end of this qualifying session. Everyone's going to get maybe 2 to 3 more laps at this point. Michael Thompson, 127. I think that becomes his best time, but doesn't really elevate him any spots. Not enough of an improvement there. Grant Johnson's still the only driver without a time. Everyone else has at least one on the board. This will be first flying lap on a new set of tyres for Trevor Leonard as well.
And that is quite the improvement there, down to a 25.3. That puts 5 tenths almost between himself and the rest of the field. Trevor Leonard is certainly on it today.
Some magic in those new set of tyres, and he must have found the right space out on track to use them as well. So definitely worth it to have changed tyres at about the halfway point of this session for him a little while ago. Now it's not time to get into pit lane, put a new set on, get out again for another flying lap, because it's too deep into the session now, which is 2 minutes to go.
Ross Thalen unable to improve on his current P16. I saw a big oversteer moment for him out of the final corner. And these GTE machines, they do have traction control, but a lot of drivers, particularly at the top level, prefer to run without it. Leonard really pushing the issue over the curbs, and he might be quicker again, but he's signaling to the driver ahead of him that he is on a flying lap, and very much like a clear track ahead. See if he can improve through Druids. He nails both apexes there, and a very nice run as a bit of damage for one of the other cars up ahead, fortunately staying out of the way there. Allow the drivers on their flying laps to complete it, and that was a lovely exit for Trevor Leonard. Is this going to be even a 1 minute 24? Not quite, but still a low 25, and that is now properly 5 tenths from P1 to the rest of the field.
Yeah, he's got half a second to absolutely everyone else. Ray Oliver's got a big handful of traffic in front of him through the final sector. We're going to see he's pretty tidy to both of those apexes as well. Oh, it's busy in the final sector at the moment. This is going to be the second to last attempt, I think, that Ray Oliver gets. No, this is going to be his last possible flying lap.
Yes, we are running the heat format tonight, which means once the time hits 0, that is the end of the qualifying session. Even if you started a lap before the timer ran out, you will not be able to complete it. Mike Pepper, well, he will probably have to settle for that, but third is certainly nothing to sneeze at. Can Barry Punter make it? No, he can't. Spins up the rears out of Lodge Corner into the wall. That is the end of his qualifying session. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 we go. Tyson Broad gets into the 1 minute 25s there right at the end of the session, and the checkered flag flies. So we can go through our starting grid now. It's Leonard and Broad on your front row, with Mike Pepper and Sam Dicker starting 3rd and 4th. Ray Oliver, nice qualifying performance there. P5 starting alongside Brody Watts. It's going to be Mason Harvey and Rob Crisdale on row 4. Clint Harvey and Cameron Edwards will round out the top 10. Then we got Alex Newton and Justin McLean with the 662 rounding out the top 12.
Next row, and they will be side-by-side rows for the rolling start. Alec Zani and Alex Barbutis gonna share that row 7. Behind them, Kevin Norman and Ross Thalen, Anthony Jewell and Terrence Nielsen for row number 9. Dean Hunt and Tom Pilcher alongside. Behind them, Bent Johansson and Grant Johnson. Did get a qualifying time towards the end there. Peter Biancucci is alongside Neil Woodburn, and there's just a couple more cars on the grid for round number 3 of Southern Cross Esports V8 Drive Day Summer Series. It's Franz Esterbauer and Michael Thompson, and then Andrew Lachlan and Barry Punter are row 14. But everyone in a very hectic 15-minute qualifying session there does get a clean lap.
Good to see. And it's the short formation lap here at Oulton Park. They are starting on the back stretch of the circuit up towards the Druids corner. So we're not going to have to wait too long for the drivers to get going into racing action. Of course, I see Sam Dicker. He's just creeping forward a little bit. He is really inching to go forward, but spinning up the rear tyres, revving up the engine is Tyson Broad. He's trying to get as much heat into that engine as possible, I think. Try and give himself max power in his fight with Trevor Leonard up at the front of the field. What a beautiful field of cars it is. Fantastic liveries, fantastic sponsors as well. It's really been a pleasure broadcasting this series on SimSpeed TV, and the fun is nowhere near stopping. We're going to be running into 2022 with this series, and it's going to be a tightly fought battle all the way through. Broad is ahead of Leonard coming up to the final corner. He's going to have to be careful not to be too far ahead when the green flag flies. But the pace car pulls ahead. Trevor Leonard and Tyson Broad, your front row, they are too wide, level, and the green flag flies, and everyone bit taken by surprise there, but Trevor Leonard gets the best start, and Tyson Broad, well, he has to immediately move to the inside of turn 1 to protect from Sam Dicker, side by side between Brodie Watts and Mike Pepper as they make their way through turn 1 for the first time. Everyone cleanly through turn 1, but the real crunch of the circuit is coming up. Oh, we got a crash at turn 3. It's Cam Edwards involved in a smash with 2 other cars there. Goodness me, Justin McLean, one of the other ones, and Alex Zaney as well, all coming together into the Cascades. Not the best start to the night for any of those drivers. Side by side on the exit of the hairpin, more towards the rear of the field. My goodness, have a look at the speed that these drivers carry through these flat-out corners, over the rise. It's Ray Oliver versus Mason Harvey, and Harvey manages to defend there going into the Hislop chicane, but have a look just behind them at Clint Harvey. He's looking to make himself known in this battle.
Had one driver shortcut that particular part of the chicane there, but everyone else still going. Trevor Leonard starting to try to break away in the lead, then it's tightly packed everywhere else. Tyson Broad and Sam Dicker for second, and then you've got that gap to Alexander Newton and all the cars in his train as well. Towards the end of lap number 1, and maybe 4 or 5 drivers a little bruised after that one.
Here's a replay of the start. We'll see what happened to Edwards, Zaney, and the like. Oh, it was a little awkward there on the exit of turn 1. A couple of drivers making mistakes, and then there was that contact. There's Cameron Edwards just spearing off the circuit, and it looks to me like Alex Zaney actually had an incident more or less by himself. He wasn't part of that contact. Well, that's typical lap 1 at Oulton Park. Oh dear, that is a long way off the circuit there for Michael Thompson. Fortunately manages to get back onto the road with, it seems, no damage to his car. But up the front, well, the race belongs to Trevor Leonard at the moment. He is 1.2 seconds ahead of everyone else, but Tyson Broad might have to start looking over his shoulder pretty shortly because Sam Dicker, he's managed to get through the chaos of lap 1, and we'll see if he can start setting some rollicking lap times here. Not much time for positions to be gained. We only have 12 minutes to go.
Yeah, it's quick, sharp races here. And then the other position, of course, you want to be keeping your eye on in race number 1 is 12th spot, because 12th gets pole position for race number 2. At the moment, it's Kevin Norman. He's in the middle of a pretty tight battle. In fact, everyone is at the moment, really. But it's the one we're watching. 4th and 5th, Brodie Watts versus Rob Crisdale. Crisdale has been looking pretty close and pretty aggressive as well.
Yeah, Crisdale gaining 3 positions on the first lap. Pretty excellent run so far. He's managed to avoid the lap 1 shenanigans. We've got some issues here with the number 21 and the number 50, Peter Biancucci in the number 50 and Grant Johnson Johnson, it seems, just overshot the chicane slightly. Biancucci, he had to take avoiding action, just glancing off those tyre barriers.
Not super wide on the way into there, and there's not a lot of room to mess about with the way those tyre bundles are structured. Backing out of the move here. Crisdale was really thinking about it and then decided against it. Up the hill, is he going to do a better job? At third apex of that complex, you see quite a few drivers struggling to get to it as they really prioritise 1 and 2.
It's very easy to get on the throttle nice and early and think, oh, you know, I'll carry more speed through the corner, but no, it induces understeer. Crisdale still looking for a way past Brody Watts here, but he's going to have to think about Mike Pepper behind as well. Pepper, he has lost 3 positions since the start of the race, but he'll want to waste no time in trying to get them back. And these guys are a 3-car train for position 4. Crisdale in a bit of a sandwich here. Fortunately, Mike Pepper also a part of the Mindset team, so he has at least some friendly company here.
Hopefully that enables him to look forward and focus on that rather than be just always looking in his mirrors. And he's got a very tight line, but then it's a bit of a squirm trying to put power down. You saw someone had locked up a bit further up the road from them as well. That battle between Tyson Broad and Sam Dicker. This is where Crisdale tried to take a look a lap ago. He's just showing the nose once again, but just can't get alongside, can't get any overlap, and gets in a little hot there as well.
Yeah, just pinched the front right on the way in, lost some time. Now he will be under threat from his teammate Mike Pepper, but not going to be enough space to make a move up here at Druids. You just get a sense there for how narrow the track is. Fitting 2 cars side by side is hard enough, let alone 3. Depending on some of the races that you see, and slight out braking attempt there from Mike Pepper, but Crisdale managed to fire it into the turn very nicely and protect that position for now at least. As they've come across the line now to start lap 5, Tyson Broad 1 minute 26.2, Sam Dicker 1 minute 26.5. So it seems Tyson Broad in P2 has the measure of Dicker at the moment in the battle for second. We'll look a bit further back in the field to turn 1, Ross Thalen and Anthony Jewell. These guys are battling for 13th and 14th. And, some slight technical issues for Anthony Jewell as well. He's not going to like that too much. Just behind them, Terence Nielsen and Grant Johnson getting very friendly with each other. And Johnson, it seems, having a very good run down this straight. He does run slightly wide, though, in that left-hander. Nice and late on the brakes. A bit of a lock-up just ahead. The battle will continue, and it seems to me Crisdale, he's still a bit frustrated here in his attempts to get past Brody Watts. You know, it seems that he's just not able to get alongside in time. As, oh dear, that is a problem for Ray Oliver. Remember, he was fighting in the middle of the top 10, and oh, that's a re-entry and a half. Fortunately, the drivers with eyes on stalks here managing to avoid all of that, but Oliver, I think, having a bit of an appointment with the tyre bundles or making a mistake into the Hislop chicane. Here's how it happened on the right side of your screen.
That's just in a little hot, and then he catches the grass, so he kind of understeered to the grass, oversteered, and then Grant Johnson, I think it might be, also has a bit of a hot moment there, but on the live pictures he's trying to recover from it. He's right up behind Franz Estebauer, looking to move through here if he can.
Yeah, the Perth Fork Trucks machine holding station here, but move up the inside and big contact there. Estebauer sent spearing off the road. Fortunately, there's plenty of runoff there, but maybe some slight suspension damage as a result of that. It looked like a pretty hard hit, though with the nature of online racing, small contact can be misleading. I tell you what, this battle for third is really starting to compress. Tyson Broad has managed to gap Sam Dicker. I think Dicker made a mistake at some point. He's ended up towing this 3-car battle up to the battle for the podium.
Yeah, and Watts, Crisdale and Pepper all got really deep into the Hislop's chicane that time around, and driver in front can kind of do that. It helps them defend, and then they can park it in the middle of the corner. It'll be very difficult to pass. So we'll see if Crisdale potentially becomes wise to that and sets himself up for a better exit out that section rather than trying to outbrake on the way in. It's past the halfway point of this race number 1 already, and it's still hot up the front.
That it is. Terrence Nielsen and Anthony Jewell, they continue their fight, and Jewell seemed getting... Oh dear, that is big contact into turn 1. Terrence Nielsen getting into the rear of Anthony Jewell there. They both find the wall at the exit of turn 1. And looks to me like it was just a case of Jewell moving back across before the braking zone. Of course, he is entitled to do that. He was ahead, and the curvature of the start-finish straight means that you kind of have to do that, but it means Anthony Jewell may have missed his braking point slightly and went heavily into the rear of the 28. But Rob Crisdale continues to fight as we check out what happened between Jewell and Nielsen. Jewell moves back across, and bam, there is the contact on the way into turn 1. It's very difficult to line up the brakes into that turn. It's actually quite quick for a turn 1, isn't it?
Yeah, it isn't deceptive because you can carry a lot of speed in, run out a little wide. It's technically an off track. So the fastest line through there is a bit deceptive, and you can't hardly see that apex until you're already bearing down on it as well. You know, little bits of undulation, and it's relatively flat curve at the apex too.
Yeah, it tightens up quite substantially right at the end of the corner, as demonstrated so well there by Brodie Watts, Robert Crisdale and Mike Pepper, continuing to fight for P4 here. Crisdale just seems that he hasn't been able to get the run he needs to get past Watts, and in terms of lap times, well, Crisdale, it seems, is definitely the faster of the two. It's just a case of lining up the move. Ross Thalen, meanwhile, well, he is in the box seat to start for pole position in race 2. Currently in 12th, and quite nice gaps both in front and behind. He's not under much threat.
He was involved in a battle with Jewell and has managed to shake him across the last bunch of laps. So holding on to 12th at the moment for Ross Thalen. Looking good for him with only a couple of laps left really to run. Probably 3 as Trevor Leonard is going to cross the line out now. Gosh, if Trevor Leonard was about 5 seconds further back, this race will be running 1 lap shorter. Someone else has had, well, because Ross Thalen's up in 11th and Barbutis in 12th at the minute.
Yeah, we'll have a replay coming up in just a few seconds to see how that went down. So now Barbutis, the one who will be looking for that P12, and there's what happened to Barbutis. He just pushed a little too hard into the chicane, and through goes Ross Thalen there. So now Grant Johnson, he's on the verge of potentially getting pole position for race 2. Barbutis is carrying some damage to his right-hand side, and Johnson, he's been monstering his way through the field here. Remember, Johnson started 22nd. He's now up to 13th place and could start on pole for race 2. That would be a great turnaround for the night.
Yeah, slow start to qualifying. Got there in the end, has really ramped it up in the race, I think, for Grant Johnson here. So, yeah, from quite deep on the grid to potentially looking at pole for race number 2, and he's potentially trying to look down the inside here, and he's gone in real deep into there, not close enough to make the pass stick. There still could be some lingering damage on the car there for Barbutis as well. It could help Johnson in this fight.
We shall see. Not much time left here in this race. It's looking like 2 laps to go for our race leader, Trevor Leonard. And the battle for 4th is just as hotly contested as it always has been. It's been a great defence here from Brodie Watts. Once again, Robert Crisdale it seems that he's just pushing the fronts a little too hard, going too deep into the corners and ending up compromising his exits as a result. That's where Brody Watts is getting the advantage here in the battle for 4th. Oh, have a look at the battle for 12th on the right-hand side as well. It seems that Ray Oliver has joined the party.
Yeah, resurgent Ray Oliver. He was in the top 5 earlier before a mistake in catching some of the grass, so he has a whole lot of speed. He's fastest lap of the race, quite quicker than the guys in front. He's also got a bit of consistency, but is that a problem up further up the road there that we caught for Kevin Norman?
He was in 8th at the time of that incident, teammate to Sam Dicker. Oh, here we go. Grant Johnson, he's having to go defensive now versus Ray Oliver. Coming into the Hislop chicane, manages to keep the position, just avoiding those tyre barriers. Very nice looking car, that Direct Industries Porsche. But won't single out any one car as looking better than the others here. I love them all equally. Very colourful field. And, you know,
okay,
you're
Dad.
all driving this... yes, it is kind of like picking your children, isn't it? Grant Johnson, well, he's pushing hard, but with 15 seconds to go, this is going to be the white flag here for the battle for race 2 pole. What will Alexander Barbutis be able to... Oh, no, actually, thanks to that incident for Kevin Norman, Grant Johnson is now up into P12, so Ray Oliver now is the one properly in contention here. Johnson's going to have to pull on the defensive drive of his life, and that's what happened to Norman. Just, wow. That's very easy to do. Go a bit wide in the left-hander, and again, the front bumper and the tyre barrier meet each other with quite some force. Not able to get the move done here is Ray Oliver, and a bit wide there for Alexander Barbutis. Grant Johnson has to compromise his mid-corner there just to give the number 34 some room. But here is the draft. I would expect Johnson to go defensive again here versus Oliver, but oh dear, wow, goodness me, they align astern coming into the braking zone, and Ray Oliver gets alongside Grant Johnson. They make contact. Johnson stays on the racetrack. Great battle between these two, and Oliver just manages to back out in time to avoid spinning Johnson, but ahead, Trevor Leonard is going to take the race win here. First time out at Oulton Park. Great drive from Tyson Broad and Sam Dicker as well to be able to complete the podium positions. Brody Watts succeeds in his defence versus Rob Crisdale. But here we go. Last chance gasp here for Ray Oliver. Can he get pole position for race 2? He goes a bit deep into the corner. Johnson isn't able to react. He almost went for the over-under, but couldn't quite get on the throttle in time. So it is going to be 13th place for Grant Johnson. Ray Oliver is your race 2 pole sitter.
What a great battle between them, and Ray Oliver had a couple options there, a couple opportunities, and made a dog's breakfast of half of them, but then right at the end there, at the final corner, did manage to get down the inside and make that very, very important move. Trevor Leonard, I'm sure, can be pretty happy with himself. Great performance all race long, to the point where we didn't see a whole lot of him. Tyson Broad's likewise in second place after a little bit there as well.
Well, let's go through our full results then. Trevor Leonard by 4.3 seconds over Tyson Broad, a dominant drive here in race 1. Sam Dicker, well, he was pressuring Tyson Broad early on, but he couldn't quite keep it together towards the end. Watson Crisdale ultimately separated by half a second at the end. Pepper, Harvey, and Harvey rounding out the top 8, with Newton and Fallon 9th and 10th.
Yeah, indeed. Alex Barbutis in 11th there, recovering from some of his mistakes. Ray Oliver recovering back up to 12th. He's going to pick up that inverted pole position for the 25-minute race coming up. Grant Johnson couldn't quite hold on to it, and behind him was Dean Hunt, Neil Woodburn, Kevin Norman, Justin McLean, Peter Biancucci, Tom Pilcher, and Anthony Jewell. A couple damaged Porsches out there.
Yes, particularly amongst these guys. Andrew Lachlan finishing 21st. Franz Estabauer, he ended up coming home 22nd ahead of Terence Nielsen, who, again, we saw having that big incident at Turn 1. Alex Zanni was involved in the Lap 1 dramas, as was Cameron Edwards, who ended up retiring from this race, I believe, or finishing a lap down with Johannesson, Thompson and Punter. ending up making it to the finish. A very, very good lack of attrition there in race 1, which is good to see. But as we are in the warm-up session between the races, we're going to step aside very briefly here on SimSpeed TV. Don't go away, though. We have got a fantastic 25-minute race with a compulsory pit stop coming up. You're watching the V8 Drive Day Perth Southern Cross Esports Summer Series.
Travis Pastrana here. iRacing, Climb to the Clouds, Mount Washington Hill Climb available now. Check it out.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in indoor series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God. Oh. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Section's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?
You're watching the V8 Drive Day Southern Cross Esports Summer Series here on SimSpeed TV. We're in the break between races 1 and 2. There's been a few developments since the conclusion of that very hectic first race. I'm Reese Gardner, it's David Haynes with me in the commentary box and Jay Kennedy on production. We're going to get a replay here from the perspective of Alexander Newton, because we've gotten word that Justin McLean was talking to the stewards. We saw that McLean was one of the cars involved in this incident on the opening lap. We see Cameron Edwards trying to pick his way through just up ahead. Newton ends up... he just hits the curb and then goes to the inside and touches McLean. Sends Justin McLean off the circuit. So that's why McLean ended up in the gravel trap with Cameron Edwards and Alex Zani. And certainly there was a lot of side-by-side contact to be had here in the first lap of race 1, David. But we're going to be resetting and going for race 2 with a mandatory pit stop.
Now, if he'd hit one car that hit another, that'd be in Newton's cradle.
Oh, goodness me. Oh, how did I not see that coming?
Because it was, if anything, too foolish. Now, this was the other one that we caught at the time. Looking for Mason Harvey here. There's a little bit of contact, a little bit more contact, and then a squeeze, I think, happens just there, yeah.
Yeah, see, that's Clint Harvey just behind him and Cameron Edwards in the red and black machine. It seems that Clint Harvey and Edwards just came together a little bit, which sent Edwards into the slide which collected Zani. Of course, we'll see what race control have to say about all of that. But either way, that shows you the dangers of lap 1 here at Oulton Park. But fortunately, the drivers are going to have a bit more time to work with here, and hopefully they'll be a bit more careful on lap 1 this time. Reverse top 12, of course, Ray Oliver has got pole position thanks to finishing 12th in race 1. The compulsory pit stop is between the first 5 minutes of the race and the final 5 minutes of the race, if previous rounds are anything to go by. So once we hit 20 minutes to go, pit window's open. Once we hit 5 minutes to go, the pit road is closed. And here's where we're going to be going for the final 3 rounds. Daytona Road Course, that's going to be an absolute draft fest, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's going to be quite different in character to Charlotte Roval, so that could be very, very good. Love Okayama. It's actually pretty good in sports cars, and Bathurst, very in vogue right now. One thing behind that graphic, I want to give you a top tip here, Reese. You can choose whether you want the pit lane speed limit to be 30 miles an hour or 50 kilometers an hour. 30 miles an hour is only 49 kilometers per hour. So set your limit at 50 k's, not 30 miles.
Yes, very
That'll
good advice.
Save you maybe a whole tenth down the pit lane.
Well, a tenth could make all the difference, couldn't it? As the checkered flag flies in the warm-up session, we'll be going live in just a few seconds for race 2. And this is how they are going to start. It's Ray Oliver and Alexander Barbutis on the front row, with Ross Thalen and Alex Newton starting 3rd and 4th. Clint Harvey and Mason Harvey share row 3, 5th and 6th. Mike Pepper's going to start 7th alongside Robert Crisdale, Brody Watts and Sam Dicker just behind them as well. It was a very close battle between Pepper, Crisdale and Watts in race 1. We'll see if they repeat that in race 2. And it's Tyson Broad and our race 1 winner Trevor Leonard who round out the top 12.
Yeah, the drivers who were just on the wrong side of the invert: Grant Johnson, Dean Hunt, Neil Woodburn, Kevin Norman, and Justin McLean, and Peter Biancucci is row 9, based on those finishing results from race number 1. And then we've got Tom Pilcher, Anthony Jewell, Andrew Lachlan, Franz Estabauer. Some drivers that are a bit deeper in the field here than they would have wanted because of issues in race number 1, like Terrence Nielsen and Alex Zani, and then it continues. The last couple drivers like Bent Johannesson, Michael Thompson, Barry Punter, and Cameron Edwards right up the back when he qualified much stronger than that. Was one of the very big victims of some of those turn 1, lap 1 incidents that we saw on the replay. But they're rolling now for the formation.
That they are, and it's certainly going to be a tough start here. The pace car pulling away very shortly. Now, this is going to be crucial here for Ray Oliver. Remember, he qualified 5th for race 1, but thanks to a couple of incidents, he wasn't quite able to get the result he wanted. It's all going to be on for him here as the pace car pulls into the pit lane. When the green flag flies, right now, we will get to racing, and it's actually a bit of a better start there from Alexander Barbutis, and he crosses the line in first place as there's a big crash in the back. That's a big problem for a lot of drivers there. Oh, and Ray Oliver, he's gone off in turn 1. His night just goes from somewhat okay to even worse as everyone tries to pick their way through the opening turns. My goodness, what a chaotic opening stanza of this race.
Yeah, and Peter Biancucci already onto pit lane, and Ray Oliver right up the back. Plenty of other cars potentially damaged already. They'd be hoping for that early stop in the pit window now, I'd have to imagine. Barbutis through into the lead of the race. Ross Thalen and a second. Clint Harvey running 3rd at the moment, but Thalen and Harvey going side by side, and they get so close to that concrete. There are a couple other drivers off as well.
Round goes Ross Thalen. Some incidents in the Hislop chicane there. It looked like a slight bit of contact for Ross Thalen. Also problems for Barry Punter, who's had to take the escape road, but the field thankfully mostly single file now after that opening chaos. Barbuchas has had a problem. Yes. Oh no, the Bunbury City Kart Club Porsche off into the weeds at the Druids corner. What on earth went wrong for him there? That might have been a mistake. We've got a lot of replays to go through here. So ultimately, it's Clint Harvey who leads the way at the moment. And tell you what, he's got a nice gap to Mason Harvey just behind. It's Newton, Crisdale and Dicker, the rest of your top 5. Trevor Leonard has gained 6 positions. He's up into P6. Here's the replay of the start crash. And oh dear, very heavy into the wall. Just looked like cars coming together side by side on the green flag acceleration. And that's one of those places where the cars will be ultra unstable, especially coming over the rise.
There are a few other drivers who got a good run on that start, trying to get down the inside, but then the track kind of starts to narrow where the pit lane is, and that nearly could have caused some problems. They're through Hislops a lot cleaner at the front this time than they were a lap ago when some drivers got in really hot and spun around, and problems there. But Harvey to the lead at the moment, and I think he's being hunted down by Mason Harvey at the moment. Harvey versus Harvey.
Here's another angle of the start, meanwhile. Big slow-mo mode. Actually looks like one of the cars caught the grass. Neil Woodburn, I believe, ended up getting into the side of Peter Biancucci. So both of them went spinning off there on the start. That is the worst possible way to begin a race, as it's on for the lead. Clint Harvey and Mason Harvey side by side into the Cascades, and Mason gets the move done. That looks to be... Is that Cameron Edwards? Yes, it is. He's had a big problem there on the outside of Cascades. And now he's a lap down. What a great start there for one of our series organisers, but Mason Harvey now into the lead, and he'll probably waste no time trying to gap Clint.
Cam Edwards will be happy to never see Cascades ever again. I think after tonight, it's all kicking off over third there. Newton versus Crisdale.
Oh dear, big contact into Hislops. Trevor Leonard and Alexander Newton coming together and off the circuit for Robert Crisdale. That looked very messy from what little I saw of it. Looks to me like Crisdale, he attempted to get the move done on Newton, but they ended up making front to rear quarter contact. That's what sent Crisdale around. So very messy opening few laps here in race 2. Crisdale now mired back in 9th place, but ahead of him, Alex Zaney, he is up 16 positions from where he started. The replay on the right-hand side, you'll see Crisdale get on the brakes and start moving back over, but he's not ahead enough. Battling continues through turn 1. Have a look at that. That is crazy stuff. Crisdale not quite getting the exit that he would have wanted there. He's battling with Franz Esterbauer in the Per Fork Trucks machine. Cameron Edwards, well, he is a lap down at the moment, but he's still fighting with these guys. You see him, they're just sticking the nose out versus Franz Esterbauer, who catches the curb and the grass. He's sent off into the gravel trap, and bam! Into the tyre barriers. And he was so close to avoiding it as well. Oh, poor Franz. He has had a very rough night.
Now a little further up the road.
Brody Watts on Alexander Newton into Hislops. Very well executed there.
Whoa, it was cleaner on the way in. It's a bit messy by the third apex there, and then a bit further up the road. Who would it be? Sam Decker and Clint Harvey and Tyson Broadall battling. This brings Mike Pepper in. I think we're right on board with at the moment. He had a great view of all of that and wasn't quite able to capitalise on the two fellas in front, tangling amongst each other.
Yes, indeed. Well, 3, 2, and 1. 19 minutes to go. The pit window is open, and straight into the pit lane comes Mike Pepper. The first of our drivers to pit here. He's followed in by Rob Crisdale, who will probably have a bit of damage to repair as well. We'll see if they're joined by anyone else making an early pit stop. The 1:15, meanwhile, of Andrew Loughlin having a bit of a moment coming out of Lodge Corner. And I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to make it into pit lane right away and get his stop out of the way. There he goes.
Yeah, so that's a handful of drivers on pit lane right now, about 5 of them. You've got a handful that had pitted in previous laps that you assume are going to have to come back through to have correctly served the compulsory pit stop. Remember, others penalised in previous races from doing it incorrectly, be it only taking fuel or taking their stop outside of the window. Oh no, bad to worse for Oliver here.
Dearie me. It looks to be something similar to what happened to Franz Estabauer coming into the island hairpin. Seems that he made that mistake by himself. Always a frustrating error to make, but this fight here for P2, Sam Dicker versus Tyson Broad. Now the shoe is on the other foot. Dicker is ahead and having to defend as Alexander Newton makes his way into the pit lane. He is followed in by Justin McLean.
Now, if you don't lock it up a little bit on the way towards the pit entry, you're not trying, but he's overshot the pit box. It would have been one that you needed to take a really sharp right-hand turn into, and he wasn't quite prepared for it. Again, a pit box is set based on the grid, which is set based on the results of race 1, which has been set based on qualifying. So the last time they left pit lane during qualifying, where their grid stall is has changed twice since then, and he's been caught out by being one of those first couple stalls.
Here's Clint Harvey with Brody Watts just behind him, and Brody is looking very racy coming into his laps. Harvey, well, he led the race early on, but going to give up that position, and he might start sliding down the order a bit. Justin McLean with 34 seconds in the pit box. Similar time there for Rob Crisdale. Remember, you have to change at least 2 tyres, I believe, in the pit stop. Unfortunately, not the best pit times for those 2 drivers. Grant Johnson and Ross Thalen, they've already made visits to the pit lane in this race. It's been a bit difficult for them, carrying some damage, and they would have pitted before the pit window opened.
Yeah, precisely. Judging by their stop times, though, everyone who pitted before the window opened took their tyres at that stop, which is... they're going to have to do it again, so that doesn't fully check out. I don't think they might have had their pit stop set from the grid, expecting to pit within the regular window, and then when they've had to come in early, they've not reset everything to emergency stop levels and left it on the scheduled stop settings. I guess that's an easy way to think about it. Hello.
Sam Dicker getting let by Barry Punter. Big lock-up for Tyson Broad just behind, and he gets involved with Punter as well. They don't make contact, but goodness me, bit of an awkward exchange between those two. Tyson Broad not able to challenge Sam Dicker for second place anymore. He'll have to rely on a mistake for Dicker in the pit stop. It seems the majority of the field coming in for their mandatory stop. The top 11 have yet to come in so far. Trevor Leonard, we just saw making his way through the pit lane. He's come back out in 13th place, and oh dear, Ray Oliver still having some issues as the driver behind him, Alex Zani, went way too deep into the hairpin, and there's not much runoff to deal with there. Looked like a hefty whack to the side of his Porsche.
Reminds me a little bit of the outer loop at Watkins Glen, where you can go very quick, carry a lot of speed with the banking, but once you end up on the wrong side of the lip, you're almost guaranteed a meeting with the wall. And the same here, even more so because it's grass instead of a paved runoff.
Yeah, so you just go slithering off. Sam Dicker, he's catching up to Mason Harvey, something chronic here. Lap time comparison, 1 minute 27.167 for Harvey, 126.89 for Dicker. Here's what happened to Alex Barbutas down at, yeah, that's the same error that's been made by a few drivers beforehand. I mean, it's a well-constructed runoff area there. That's pretty much the only option you have in terms of runoff at that corner, but man, you turn in a little bit too early, you hit that bump on the inside on the grass, and you're a passenger from there on.
And that's the purpose of the tyre wall there, is to prevent someone who went off at the previous corner then spearing back across the track at the hairpin, a la Phillip Island and other places where that happens.
Looking at Dean Hunt and Terence Nielsen battling for 7th. Brodie Watts has just come into the pits ahead of these guys. And will they go in as well? At least Hunt is going to. And manages to slow down to 50 Ks. And wow, that's very sideways there for who was that came in? Biancucci. Peter Biancucci. He's been in the pits for quite some time here, 36 seconds now, and still carrying quite a bit of damage to the rear left. It's going to be an awkward way to get out of that pit box for him, but pit lane is a hive of activity. Estabauer, Watts, Woodburn and Hunt. Someone else has overshot their pit box. Again, it seems to be quite an easy thing to do here at Oulton Park. But Brodie Watts manages to get out of the lane there. Estabauer going up on the jacks. Oh dear, Mike Pepper. That's certainly not the line you should be taking through turn 1.
It's not a slow line though, so it's something you can get away with a couple times until you are at, you know, an incident limit or some other kind of penalty. Otherwise, with no safety rating skin in the game in this hosted league, it is the fastest way through turn 1 there. We saw that catch out a lot of drivers in qualifying where there is a penalty for any off track. In the race, well, you can get away with it a couple more times. Harvey and Dicker haven't stopped yet. They're carrying on and still making very good pace. So I would say, even though everyone but the top 6 has now pitted, Harvey and Dicker still look like they are net leaders.
Yeah, they seem to be on the way to that. Trevor Leonard might not be able to challenge for the race victory here tonight. Terence Nielsen is in the pit lane at the moment, currently completing his stop. And we should be expecting stop times of around 33 to 35 seconds, really, in the lane. Seems to be that's what most of the drivers have been doing. Nielsen just managing to get his stop done. He's been in the lane a little bit longer though, 38.3 second stop for Nielsen. It's likely he is going to come out in about 14th place, maybe 15th, as Dicker continues to pressure Mason Harvey for the lead. When are these guys going to jump in the lane? They have until the 5-minute mark.
I mean, you look at where the traffic is, and they're starting to come up to some, actually. So for Harvey and Dicker, I'd keep that in mind. It's clear for a lap or another 2, and they'll start to catch some. And if you're Sam Dicker and you pit a little earlier, and then Mason Harvey encounters that traffic, that could work out. How many drivers have needed to engage reverse gear on pit lane?
Well, Kevin Norman can add one more to that number, unfortunately. It can be very misleading in a very slow pit lane like Oulton Park, exactly when you need to start slowing down. As we've said many times, it is a very tight pit lane. Dicker, he is on the verge of attempting a move here, and he is on the brakes a little bit later than Mason Harvey. They give each other room through the Hislop chicane, but Dicker is not able to complete the move just yet. Oh, bit of a mistake there from Mason Harvey on the exit. He had to give it a helping of opposite lock. Is Dicker brave enough to try and move up the inside into Druids? He's lining one up, but he has to back out of it. Harvey, though, he runs wide, gives him space. slips back in for a late apex in the second part of the corner. I tell you what, if Dicker continues to be stuck behind Harvey like this is going to bring Tyson Broad back into the picture for the battle for the race win. But Dicker, he elects to leave well enough alone, jump into the pit lane. Tyson Broad follows him in.
Dicker really looked like he was angling for do the opposite of whatever Mason Harvey does. So as Harvey stayed out, Sam Dicker dived into pit lane, is going to try to clear his pit stop early. Of the drivers who have made their pit stop, well, Mike Pepper's rejoined, and he is right with Trevor Leonard here. But Leonard's trying a unique and novel way around the outside, then the inside. Done it.
Yeah, it looks to me like Mike Pepper saw what was happening pretty quickly and just decided to let off the throttle a bit early, let Trevor Leonard go, recognizing that he has superior pace at the moment. And, oh, that's interesting. Tyson Broad has come out of the pit lane ahead of Sam Dicker. Now, did Sam overshoot his pit box like so many drivers have today? Going to take a brief look.
Well,
no,
the number I've got has him at a long stop time, not a long lane time. So I think he found the pit stall just fine, and then something has made the pit stop take just a little bit longer. He's right back into the thick of the action though, because that is Trevor Leonard immediately behind him.
And immediately in front of him now, as that was a big lock-up for Sam Dicker on those new, slightly colder tyres. Could potentially be in trouble versus Mike Pepper as well. But Trevor Leonard will be back out here, and it'll be interesting to see how much further up he can get. Oh, I thought that there was a hint of oversteer on entry there for Trevor Leonard, but apparently not. The Harveys have both pitted, and as we like to say at SimSpeed TV, the field is now cleansed. So let's see where these guys come out. How close will Trevor Leonard be?
Well, if it's a good stop, 33 seconds or so for Mason Harvey, he'll have the lead. If it's 37 seconds like Sam Dicker, he'll be right around here. So he's reached 30 seconds now. Car drops. It's waiting a long time here for Mason Harvey.
Leonard and Dicker have already exited the final corner. This is going to be tight. They'll be rounding him up pretty shortly, but it looks to me like Mason Harvey has managed to make his way out. Tyson Broad, though, is in the lead, and by quite some margin. Leonard going for second versus Mason Harvey, and that seems to be a pretty easy maneuver there in the Cascades. Trevor Leonard now up into P2, but have a look at the lead that Tyson Broad has with 6 minutes to go in the race. I know how good of a driver Trevor Leonard is, but I sincerely doubt he'll be able to make up that gap.
I don't. Two
Don't
seconds with 4 laps to go. Was he not on pole by half a second?
He was, but, of course, there's plenty that could go wrong on the way. Might have to call that the old Gardner gaff. We'll have to see if Trevor Leonard indeed does maintain that superior pace he carried from qualifying. I mean, look at him leaving behind Mason Harvey now, and Sam Dicker is right back in the position he tried to get out of by going into the pit lane before Harvey did. He's still stuck behind. Or could he go for it?
Not close enough, but he had a real good look, and you get some interesting body language out of them now towards the end of this longer race. Definitely squirming a little bit on throttle in places, and the balance gets thrown out from that 2 tyre change. Takes a lap or 2 to get back. Hello, Mason Harvey.
Well held, I have to say, but that's certainly the opposite of fun for a driver in the exit of turn 1. Dicker is lining up a move here. Oh, that's an interesting place to make the move. Got to be careful not to come together in the braking zone here. A lock up for Mason Harvey, and Dicker has to stay behind once again, but he hooks up the throttle very nicely. This could be a move into his lops. If he can get in the draft, just stick behind the number 54. He has a bit of overspeed over Mason Harvey. Into the corner they go. Just manages to edge ahead as they make their way into the right-hander. There we go, Sam Dicker now up into P3.
There's a classic one from Sam Dicker there, where he didn't intend to leave a car's width on the outside, which meant he could carry a lot of speed on the way in, which meant there wasn't a car on his outside by that track out point. Very risky maneuver that just got him clear and back up into third. Wouldn't be surprised to see Harvey have another dig at him. Last lap around, Leonard 6/10 faster than Tyson Broad at the lead. Now they cross the timing line again, and this time Leonard only takes 4/10 out of the leader.
Oh, and he's getting very liberal with the track limits at turn 1 as well. You can see how hard Trevor Leonard is pushing with under 3.5 minutes to go in race 2. Mason Harvey is not letting Sam Dicker get away and could potentially bring Mike Pepper into the battle for P3 once again. But for the race win, it is going to be 2 horses. Looking from the back of Tyson Broad, seeing Trevor Leonard just looming in the background here. Leonard with the most wins on the board so far this season. See how much the gap goes down by the end of this lap. Seeing some fresh tyre tracks there at Hislops as well. Someone in the mid to rear of the field has had a bit of a moment there.
Seen a handful of drivers sort of get in a little hot to that section, recognise it, and then shortcut it. Not unlike the chicanes on the Gold Coast street circuit or something, where once you realise you're going to have a problem, you're much better off giving up on the corner than trying to carry it through and smacking a tyre bundle.
And as you alluded to at the start of our broadcast, the tyre bundles here are actually completely solid. You can't just go through them like real-life tyre bundles. They're basically made out of white dwarf material in the sim, and if you make contact with them, then your car is going to have a very bad time. It seems that Harvey has not quite been able to get the pace back to try and fight Sam Dicker too hard. Trevor Leonard, well, the gap's now down to 1.2 seconds. He took another 3/10 out of Tyson Broad on that lap. Broad, I think, is starting to ramp up the pace a little more here. 1 minute 26.4 on the previous lap. It's a reasonably good lap there from Tyson Broad, actually his fastest of the race so far. So he's doing everything right to try and hold on to this lead, setting your fastest laps at the end. But Trevor Leonard will undoubtedly be doing the same, and he'll be hoping that Barry Punter up ahead can provide a little bit more interest for the battle for the lead, maybe a little bit of traffic. We'll have to wait and see.
Looked like a bit of understeer through the faster corner for Leonard there. Traffic is the big unknown though, as they're trying to get around Barry Punter.
And the white flag flies with 45 seconds left on the clock. Oh dear. Whoa, Trevor Leonard. Oh, way off the circuit in turn 1, but he makes his way past Punter with relative ease. The gap is down to 0.8 of a second here. Can Leonard make up 0.8 in a single lap? I mean, I honestly don't know. He might have to count on a mistake from Tyson Broad if he wants to take 2 from 2 tonight. But oh no, there we go. I think that might have done it. Leonard went a bit too deep into the hairpin, and he's lost a couple of valuable tenths there.
Speedway trying to ride the cushion up against the wall potentially. No, that did cost him time. Lost about 2-3 tenths from that he desperately needed. Who's this going slow? Clint Harvey.
Oh dear.
Has he run out of fuel, or has he popped the engine?
Either way, that car doesn't look like it's going anywhere fast, and
Clint
that's a
Harvey
shame.
had the shortest pit stop time of anyone.
Yeah, maybe there wasn't enough fuel in the car to get it done, but final lap it is, and final turn it is going to be for Tyson Broad. Trevor Leonard continues to try and round him up here, but Broad will be under no pressure. Out of Deer's Leap, weaving across the track towards the start-finish line, and Tyson Broad will take race 2 here at Oulton Park in the Southern Cross Esports Summer Series. Good results for Trevor Leonard and Sam Dicker. They complete the podium. Mason Harvey and Mike Pepper will round out the top 5 there. Fantastic stuff. And Pepper gaining quite a few positions there, 10 to be exact. But Rob Crisdale also up 10 positions. They're the biggest movers in the field. Clint Harvey is still trying to make his way around the circuit here. And that's
not looking like a car with a lot of fuel.
No, it's a real shame to see from the driver who led early on in race 2. For 18th and 19th, Neil Woodburn and Ray Oliver, the recovering Ray Oliver, who we saw have quite a few big offs here, might be able to get just one more position here towards the end. How brave will he be on the brakes versus Neil Woodburn? He's going to show him the nose, but oh yeah, there we go. Woodburn saw him coming and just decided, yeah, all right, mate, you can have that. But the celebrations will begin for Tyson Broad and for Trevor Leonard with a win apiece tonight. There are the results. 8/10 the gap at the end. Sam Dicker 3 seconds behind the lead. Harvey, Pepper, Watts, Crisdale, Zanny, Newton and Norman, your top 10. It's a good recovery there for Alex Zanny after a torrid race 1.
And on the next page, Dean Hunt, Justin McLean, Terrence Nielsen, Tom Pilcher, Ross Thalen, Franz Esterbauer, Grant Johnson, Ray Oliver with that last corner, last lap pass on Neil Woodburn, and Ben Johansson, 20th.
21st went to Andrew Lachlan, the last car on the lead lap. Clint Harvey, well, he's classified 22nd at the end. Barry Punter, Cameron Edwards and Michael Thompson all classified a lap down as well. Cameron Edwards did not have the best of starts. He was already a lap down by the time they got to lap 2. And our 3 retirements, Alexander Barbutis, Peter Biancucci and Anthony Jewell. They will not be too happy with how the night has ended for them, but hopefully when Daytona comes up in a few weeks' time, they'll be able to recover some points. Well, that is the end of the racing action, but we still have to go through our driver interviews here, and really looking forward to that. The first up is going to be Trevor Leonard, who's visited the SimSpeed comms box a few times this season. Trevor, a successful night for you. A win in race 1, second in race 2, but got quite a bit hectic in the second race, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I think I was the victim of a innocent casualty. I'm not sure who I ran into, but yeah, unfortunate incident in the bus stop, and yeah, just tried to recover as best as I could after that.
It seemed that passing, I mean, we've broadcast here at Oulton Park quite a few times, and passing has always been a point of contention because the track's just so narrow and twisty, but the lack of that first chicane really helped the battles here tonight, didn't it?
Are you there? Sorry, my
Yes.
computer issues.
still here.
I haven't raced the Oulton layout with that first chicane, so I can't really comment on that. But yeah, overall it is a pretty tricky track to overtake on.
Yes, well, either way, with your championship rival Gianni Lutzu not being here tonight, it's basically a free kick for you here in round 3. You'll undoubtedly take the lead of the championship coming into Daytona, and from there on, it's all about maintaining that momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Gianni. He's on holiday, having a good birthday, so props to him for having a good time. But yeah, hopefully this helps the championship cause a fair bit.
We shall see. Well, either way, congratulations once again, Trevor Leonard. Is there anyone you'd like to thank for your win in second here tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. All the series sponsors. So we got V-Race, West Australian Automotive Equipment, Word of Mouth Signs, Alliance Auto Parts and Mining Service, and of course V8 Drive Day Perth. And yeah, again, huge shout out to my team sponsor, Racecraft. If you need any sim gear, go check them out, racecraft.com. Cheers.
And cheers to you, Trevor Leonard. Fantastic to talk to him once again. And it seems that he's the only driver we're going to be able to get a chance to talk to here tonight. But regardless, David, what a fun night of racing at Oulton Park once again. I mean, I'm enjoying this series more and more every single round.
It doesn't mess about, does it? I mean, it feels like we've just had, what, an hour and a half of racing. because it was the perfect amount of racing for race number 1 and then just long enough for that strategy to play out in race number 2 as well, that Tyson Broad, to his credit, absolutely nailed, coming from 11th on the grid to work through to grab that win, holding off all the pressure from Trev counter Leonard. Great work by them, and extends the lead for Trevor.
It does indeed. But when Gianni Lutzu returns from his holiday, will Trevor Leonard have a bit more of a tough time of it at Daytona? We'll have to wait and see. You'll be able to catch that in 3 weeks' time here on SimSpeed TV. Thanks once again to our series sponsors on your screen: V8 Drive Day Perth, V-Race Experience, West Australian Automotive Equipment, Word of Mouth Signs, and Alliance Auto Parts and Mining Supplies. I'm Reese Gardner, David Haynes alongside me, and Jay Kennedy on production as per usual. Another great night of racing in the Southern Cross Esports Summer Series. We'll enter the second half of the season very soon, and we hope that you'll be able to join us.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's going the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to him.
Oh my God! Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no, that's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?